Hello again. My name's Kate Crane. You may have seen me in Craft Stamper magazine or even in some of the American art publications. Welcome to Art Journaling, There Are No Mistakes in Art. I chose that title for this DVD because I truly believe there are no mistakes in art and no mistakes in an art journal. We're going to look at how to complete backgrounds created in the previous DVD or backgrounds that you've already prepared in your journals by adding collage images and rubber stamps, and then we're going to add some journaling to the pages, looking at how, where and what to write. Journaling is all about you. Every little thing you add to the page is an expression of you, because you are unique. Your journal is a place to play, paint, draw, experiment, try new things, anything you like. You can't go wrong because there are no mistakes in art. It's time to let your creativity soar. Although there are images all around us in magazines, books, leaflets and so on, many of these images are in fact copyright to the publisher or the owner or the person who took the photograph in the first place. But the internet is a great place to search for images. The internet has opened up a whole world of possibilities for artists. I'm going to show you how to search for images. First of all, you could try just searching for collage images in a search engine. This will lead you to lots of places. You will eventually, of course, find your favourites. I'm going to show you a few of my favourite sites for images. This first one here is Art from the Heart. This section is known as Diane's Downloads. Clicking on that will lead you to the individual pages. And again, you can click on those for a closer look. Now you will see that there are always terms and conditions, so read this carefully because everybody has different terms and conditions on their site. Once you've paid for something like this one will come to you as an email, and that gives you then the opportunity to print it out as many times as you want to. I'm going to show you another site now, and here we're looking at Tumblefish Studio, and this is a blog. You'll see straight away there are copyright, terms and conditions. There are links to a shopping site, and from that you can go straight to the shopping site, you can choose your images, and again you can download those to your own PC. Now different artists have very different styles of their images, and you'll soon find your favourites. This one is It. Now this one you can get images directly on this blog. You can see there's a sheet there. Well, there is also a link to a shopping site which you can go to download those images to. And I'll show you this one. This is Rianne Designs, and sometimes you'll notice here in the middle that as well as being able to buy images, some artists offer freebies as well. This is an image from Lisa's Altered Art, which I've already downloaded. Now I might find that I want to crop an image so that I can resize it to fit a page in my journal. I'm using Photoshop here, but you could use any photo software that you have on your computer. Now that image is large enough to go on a journal page. If I wanted, I could also play a little bit with the colours. I can change the saturation, and I can change the brightness. You can also change the contrast. And when you're happy and that's suitable for your journal page, you can print that off as many times as you want to. This one is Diane's Downloads. You can see how that's printed out. I've done a full page print, and I could cut those images out and use them in my pages. Now here's one you'll see. I've already cut something out of this one. This is Nancy Baumiller, and you'll actually see that missing bit there appearing in one of my journal pages later in this DVD. When you start looking around, you'll soon find which images you like. Some are very cute, some are a little bit different. Here's something by It that's a little bit different. Amongst my favourites, that one. This is the free one from Rianne Designs that I've just shown you. That's how it prints out. Now I'm going to show you two here from Tumblefish Studios. They're slightly different. This one is a PNG file, and this one is a JPEG file. It doesn't really matter to collage artists. The difference is that a PNG file has a transparent background. That means if you were working on digital art in Photoshop, you could start to layer up images. But for collage artists, it doesn't matter. You cut them out and use them just the same. So that's where I get most of my images, and now I'm going to show you how I add those to my pages. I'm going to complete a page now that I started by using finger painting. I'm just going to clip the corners. This is a good tip here that stops the pages curling up as you're working on them. This page started with a baby wipe and got a base colour of pink on, added colour with finger painting, then added some extra texture with rubber stamping and bottle lids, and added a few splats of paint. Now there's quite a lot more to be added to this page. Because my journal is for me, I'm going to use a photograph of me. I'm going to place that just slightly to one side. And I'm going to use some Japanese tape, and this is semi-translucent tape. I'm going to use some tape to hold this in place. It's just an extra feature on the page. And just to make it slightly different, I'll put a bit in each corner and then strip along the bottom. And that's enough to hold that photograph in place there. Now, something I like to do when I use a photo, just to help it look as if it's part of the page, I'm going to use my bottle lid and I'm just going to bring something over the corner of the photo. It just helps the whole thing to look as if it's part of the page. So I'm just thinking where's the best place to put this. I think probably just over this corner. And you can see it's just going on a little bit. It just helps to make it look as if it's supposed to be there. Now I'm going to go in with my Faber-Castell Pitt pen now. This is a black pen, super fine nib. I'm going to add some doodling. And I'm probably going to go back to these circles. And I want this page to have a fairly relaxed, scribbly look. So I'm not trying too hard here. Okay, this is all part of the look. And I think while I've got the pen in my hand, I'm going to do a border all the way around. I don't need to worry about this being too straight. I'll do a little few scribbles as I go along. I'll come back to that later when I've moved the clip. Oops. You can add as much detail as you like. Once you've got your pen in your hand, you can keep going adding little details. I'm going to take my oil pastels now. These are a great way of adding some extra colour, extra scribbles around the circles. So I'm going to pick colours that I've already got in the page. I don't want to introduce any new colours, so I'm going to go for this yellow colour and a darker red. And I can just start to add some extra colour. I can blend that in. Just gives a nice kind of relaxed look to the page. Now with the darker red, I think I'm going to add some extra circles around here. I might just add a little bit of pink as well. Now I'm going to do some stamping down here, and I've got some alphabet stamps. These are Hero Arts alphabet stamps, and I'm going to use some StazOn ink because I want this to be permanent. And again, this is going to be quite a relaxed look because I don't want to be too accurate with my stamping. So some of the letters are going to be slightly wonky. That's okay, it's part of the look. And I'm going to stamp down here, this is for me, because this journal is for me. Now you can see I'm not using anything to line up my letters, I'm just going straight in. Because they don't have to be perfectly straight. If it was perfectly straight, it wouldn't really suit the rest of the page. So far these are coming out reasonably well together, but that's more by luck than judgment, I have to say. There we are, so there's our lettering. And I'm going to hand draw an arrow to me. Now this is the point where I stand back and have a look and I see if it needs anything else that might need adding. I might look for some gaps that might require a little bit more. And sometimes I don't always know that. I don't always know that on the day. I might look back at it later on another day and think, it's got a bit missing there. So I might just add a little bit more colour here. At this point I like to stop and stand back and give myself a little bit of distance, have a look at what I'm doing and see if there are any gaps or anything else that I want to add to the page. Just going to add some extra numbers, random numbers. This is a number stamp by Marvinci. Quite like to use random numbers, doesn't particularly mean anything, just adds some interest to the page. I've also added just my date stamp in the corner so I don't forget when I completed the page. I'm going to leave that page there for now, and I shall come back to it later and add some journaling. Now on the next page I'm going to look at ways of grounding an image onto the page. This is the page that I created using a paintbrush to blend the background, and added some stenciling, built up some layers with the spray inks here, and splattered some spray inks here. I amended some extra stamping with bits of toy here and credit cards and so on. I've clipped the corners again to keep my page nice and flat to work on. And I have some pre-cut images here I'm going to use. These are Tumblefish Studios, and I've mixed and matched, so I've got a body and a head. I have some wings. I'm going to give her a crown, and I cut her feet off because I'm going to give her some boots. And I also have some borders cut, again from Tumblefish, that I'm going to add to the page. Now before I attach anything to the page, I'm just going to lay these images on so I can see where I want them to be. I've done a little double border along the bottom, deliberately not to reach the end. I don't want it to go right across here. Now something that I always like to do with any images that I cut out to use is to get rid of the white edges. I like to use a distress ink. This colour is a really useful colour, antique linen, and it just takes the white edge off. And I've done this to all of my images already, the borders, the face, everything, and just take it round the edge. You won't see much on the front here, but it gets rid of the white edge, and it really helps these images to sit better on the page. So before I attach anything, I do that around all the edges. Now, as I place the body, I don't want it completely central. Images always sit better slightly off centre, and it means I also get to keep some of this lovely detail here. I'm going to have her feet, but I'm going to make sure that she's actually standing on something. Without this border, she would look like she was floating, which isn't always a great look. I'm going to give her some wings just from here. Now by doing this, it means I can move things around if I'm not quite happy with where they are. See, she's slightly close to the edge there. I can just move her along. Now, placing the head is really important because she can have different looks. By tilting the head, can make her look a little bit more quizzical. That way, it doesn't quite work for me. I prefer her head just off angle like that. And I'm going to give her a crown. Now, I can have the crown actually on her head. Just for a slightly different whimsical look, I can have it coming slightly off like that. And now I'm happy with where that is, because this leaves me some space down here for journaling later on. To attach these images to the page, I'm going to use some gel medium. Again, there are lots of different makes of this on the market. Quite often I use my fingers for adding to the back of images, but you can see my pot's getting a little bit low down, so I keep an old paintbrush for this and just a spare sheet of paper. And I'm just going to start by painting it on the back. Now, if you've used inks on the page like I have, then gel medium will make your inks run. I have found that out through trial and error. So once the gel medium is on the back, it just wants placing on the page, and I'm not going to brush any medium over the top, because that will make other bits on the page start to bleed and run. So I'm going to leave it just like that. And the next thing to do is add my borders along the bottom. Once I have the top and bottom in place, I can add the image as well. So I'm going to start with the lowest border, because that will help me to place the other one. I want to add this one, but just slightly higher. Now I know where to place the shoes, and that means I can have her standing on there as if it's a step. This is one of the ways of grounding images on the page, so that I don't want her to look like she's floating, I want her to look like she's actually standing on something. Now this is where things get a bit tricky, because there's bits to be layered underneath, but I need to know where the body's going to be. So I'm going to start actually with the body first. I'm going to put a layer of gel medium on the back. Now Now there are bits here that I don't want to stick down, so I'm keeping the ankles free. And the shoulders free. I can stick those down a little bit later on, and then I can see where to put the shoes and the wings underneath. So it's just a question of doing things in the right order. So there's her second foot. Now I need to get her wings tucked under the shoulders and stick the top part of the body down. Now that will stick down there. And if any bits don't stick down, of course, you can just go back in with a bit more gel medium. And now for the head. Yeah, I'm just going to place it. I want it to look slightly quizzical, so I'm just going to go in slightly on an angle. This is a very whimsical look, a page like this, so it doesn't really matter if the head is at an improbable angle. And then I'm going to add her crown, but I think I'll add it a little bit higher up. So now I have all of my main elements in place on the page. There's still more that I want to add. It's really important now that I let that gel medium dry so that I can start to add some charcoal and some doodling around the edge to really bed her into that page. So I'm going to leave that to dry now. Now you'll probably see that while I was waiting for the gel medium to dry, I got a bit impatient and decided to add a couple more features here. In fact, I'm going to add a third one. This is going to make flowers which I'm going to doodle around and build into the whole page. And for these I've used a page of backgrounds, again by Tumblefish, as these backgrounds are also very useful to punch circles out of. So I'm using my circle punch. If I do it this way, I can see where I'm cutting. And I'm going to use this one to make third flower, and you'll probably notice that I've taken one of mine off the edge of the page, and at the end when it's all dry I will just trim that off so that it's level with the page. So I'm just going to add a third flower in the same way with some gel medium. These may not look like flowers yet, but I'm going to work on them. Now, to come back to this one, I'm going to use my charcoal pencil, and just to help her look a little bit more, as part of the page, just take a little bit of charcoal, now a little bit at a time, because it's much easier to add more than it is to take away. And you can see I'm using my blending tool and my finger, I'm just going round the edge. And it's a tiny bit at a time. Now down here under the feet, I can add quite a bit more, creating a little shadow here. And this just helps to give us the idea that she is actually standing and not floating. I would go around all the edges, just a very small amount. Careful around the face, I don't want it too dark. So I'm going to put a tiny bit in there. That just helps the whole thing to look like it was supposed to be there. Now, these borders need a little bit of work, so I'm going in again with my Pitt pen. I'm just going to doodle around the edge. And I might just occasionally again add a little scribble, just give it a little bit more detail. And this really is a fun bit because you can just keep going and adding as much detail as you want to. Just going a bit offline there, don't worry too much about things like that. Can always go back and doodle over it again. Okay, now then, same again down here. Put a little scribble in every now and then. And finally this border here. Like that. Now then, I need to turn these now to look more like flowers rather than floating circles. So they're going to need a stem to the bottom, and I'm going to do that quite wiggly. Perhaps a double line, it's going to look quite sketchy, and then I'll draw some little petals around the edge. So, like that. And this is great if you can't draw a straight line, because you don't really have to. Now this one of course is very close to the edge, but I think where it will be. And a couple of little leaf shapes. You can see I'm not being really accurate here. It doesn't really matter. It's part of the look. Now around the edge of these, and then I'm going to go in with my petals. Maybe double petals again to keep in with that sketchy look. And this one. Go round a second time. I'm being deliberately uneven here. I don't want these to look too accurate. So I'm going to go in now with my white Sharpie paint pen and add some detail. Check that that pen's working. and I just paint in every petal, and also here. Again, you can see I'm not being too accurate. It's kind of sketchy style, I don't need to be too accurate with this bit here. Now, one other thing I'm going to do in a minute, when I've just finished around this edge here, I'm just going to add a little bit more gold paint. I'm going to use my bottle lid again. I'm just going to overlap a little bit just to make sure that she's really looking part of the page. So just overlapping onto your images a little bit really helps. I shall just take that over the edge there. And I'll just pick that one up there. And just by overlapping onto the page and the image, it makes everything look like it's supposed to be there. Now, as a final touch before I add any journaling, I'm going to use my Neocolour. This is a wax crayon, it's water soluble. I'm not going to use water with it now. I'm just going to add some extra colour. I've already got these circles here, so I can just go in there and add some colour. And again, you'll see I'm sticking to colours I've already used on the page. I don't want to introduce new colours. Sticking to the same colours in the background. This is how we get a kind of cohesive look. We can add plenty of colour with the images, but keeping your background to the same colour palette. It doesn't get too untidy. It can be busy, but we don't want it to look cluttered. I'm going to leave that page just there for now. I've left some gaps for journaling, and I'll come back to that later on and add some words and add some writing. I'm going to move on to the next page now, which is the page that I added a border to all the way round. This is the page that I created earlier with a credit card. You can still see some of the lines which were created by scraping paint across the page. And then I stenciled and sprayed some ink, and at the time I said it didn't really matter about the messy edges because it was going to be covered up with a border. And you can see I've got some of my borders stuck down already. These are borders from Nancy Baumiller, also known as Crowabout Studio B. So these are her images, and I've still got some that I'm going to add along the top here. And you'll see now that all of my messy edges are covered. And I'm going to add a central feature up the middle of the page. And for this I'm going to take an image from a photograph that I took. This is something I actually have in my house. These are vintage rubber glove moulds, and I took a photo of them both and printed on paper, cut one out, and I'm going to use this as my central feature on the page. So I'm mixing and matching here images from Nancy, and I'm going to add mine as a main feature and add some little extra additions, and I'll still then have plenty of room for journaling around the edge. Now, one thing about putting a border together is that we don't want it too straight around the edge. So if you have a look, mine come in and out so that I'm creating a varied border around the edge. We also need to be careful how we glue these down because we need to overlap them carefully so we don't end up with any gaps. So I'm just going to take off these ones that aren't yet glued down. And I'm going to start by putting this one right along the top. And I'm using gel medium, painting it on. I don't want these inks to run that I've used on the page, so I'm just going to place it on. I'm not brushing any over the top. And next I'm going to add this border. And once all of these pieces are then glued down, I'm going to go around with my pen and doodle and add some more detail. I'm just making sure that there's no gaps between the border and the top piece that I've got there, so it looks nice and smooth along there. This piece is going to go here, and it's going to cover up the joins there and overlap that one there. And this piece is going to go there. Now these moleskin pages have slightly rounded corners. I'm just going to glue it like that, and when it's all dry I can just trim that off from the other side. So now I'm going to add my hand. You'll see I've left a little gap here. I need that to come down and just overlap there so that we've got that hand going up central. I've already been round with the distress ink on this one. Just take away those white cut edges. I think we'll just add that one in the middle there. And I found this one here that says the word play. I'm going to add that because that's what I like to do. I like to play in my art journal. Now I'm just going to leave that to dry for a moment. Remember, if I go around with my pen now on wet gel medium, the pen's going to stop working. So while I'm letting that dry, I just want to go in. I'm going to use the yellow. This is the yellow that I used to fill in some of the gaps underneath here. And I can now see where I might just highlight some areas of those stenciled flowers. So I'm not introducing a new colour here. This colour was already there in the background. I'm just going over the centre of those flowers. And I might just add a little bit more. Most of this will be covered up with the journaling, but it still adds lots of nice detail in the background. So I'm just adding some little credit card marks in the yellow still, so I'm not introducing any new colours. And while that glue is drying, I'm just going to add a little bit more detail, a bit of doodling, just to have a little play. I can just go round the borders. And here I'm just using a straight line. I could go in and just add a little bit more, like a fake running stitch. And round this one, I could add lines within the shape, like that. Here I might just bring in another line around the head. Anything at all, you can just doodle your way around the whole thing. You can vary what you do, so I might just add a little scalloped edge along here. And slightly just varying my fake running stitch there. Now this bit here needs a good solid line round because this is a similar colour to the background. Just to make sure we can see along here, I'm just going to go around the edge. And then within that, actually on the shape itself, building in an extra line. Again, you don't need to be too accurate. Now you see how this now stands out better than this bit here. Now if you wobble a bit like I did there, just bring another line down, it doesn't matter. That's looking slightly stronger there now. Could also go along that edge there. And I would keep doing that all the way around on all of these shapes, building in some extra detail around the edge. I'm just going to focus on this hand here for a minute. I'm going to use another of my Neocolour wax crayons. I think I'm just going to draw around this and give it a little bit of definition. All the way round. Not forgetting that extra thumb shape there. Now, again, the hand still needs a little bit more. I could probably stamp over there, just highlight that there's a circle there, so I think I'll take a little bit of gold. I'm going to go in with one of my bigger lids, because this is good just for adding a circle as a highlight that there's a shape in there. Okay, so back to these borders. And you can just vary each one slightly. So here I can bring in a double line. And this one, I think, because there's quite a solid block of colour there, I can just bring a line around the inside of that one there. Now with the crayon, if I wanted to, I could also put a little bit of extra on these coloured borders here to match what I've done there. It just helps that the whole thing start to look a little bit more cohesive. Bring a little bit of crayon along there. It's just kind of tying all the colours in together. I'm going to leave that page there now. It's ready for journaling, so I can come back to that one later. Now I'm going to have a look again at the inky background that I created. One thing about ink sprays is that they are really quick and easy to make backgrounds. I'm going to add some images today, and we'll talk to you a little bit about placement of images. There's a bit here that I'm not that happy about. I don't like that line there, so I'm going to work on a way of how to cover that up there. Now these little images are by Tumblefish Studios, little portraits. I do want to have these on my page. Just placing them like that doesn't look really cohesive. I want to find a way to bring this whole page together. I've cut a border here from a piece of just scrapbook paper, 12 by 12 scrapbook paper. I'm going to use that border to cover up the line that I'm not really happy about. And as in previous pages, I'm just going to add a second border as well. Now that way I can have one portrait here on the border and this one here, and I can bring this one a little bit lower, and she's now overlapping that border and it's starting to look a little bit more organised, and it's also covering up the line that I wasn't too happy about. Now I want to go for a whimsical look here, so using this same paper, I've freehand cut these hats. You can see they're not really regular. This one is smaller for a reason, because I want these ones to come to the top here. But this one is going to be slightly shorter because I'm going to add some extra features. If you remember, in the background we added some orange because orange was opposite to blue on the colour wheel, so this is our accent colour. And I'm just going to add an extra little bit to her hat there. Now that's how the page is going to look, and this leaves me some room down here for some journaling. I'm just going to use gel medium and a paintbrush. Have to be careful that the ink doesn't run with the gel medium. So I'm going to start with the borders and work upwards. And that's where I want to cover up the bit I don't like. And I'm just painting this on. You see, I use a scrap of paper, and that way when it gets messy I can just either turn it over or start with another piece of paper, as gel medium can get very sticky. That's going to go about there. I'm going to start with my central image, and that way I can work outwards. She's going roughly in the centre. She's going to sit on that bottom border there. I'm going to add one at either side. the final portrait, and then I'll add their silly hats. Pages like this are really quick to do, so you don't always have a lot of time or as much time as you would like for your journaling, though sometimes quick is good. And giving them these really tall hats means that I'm taking the detail right to the top of the page. Almost done, just one more piece to add. I've left a small gap on that page for some journaling, and I'll come back to that later on. Now I'm going to have a look at how to include a stamped image as your main feature on a page. I like to have some pre-prepared backgrounds ready in my journal. Here's some backgrounds I've prepared earlier. I'm going to work on this one today, and this one is done the same as earlier with a credit card, and I've scraped paint on the same. I've stenciled some areas with the flowers, and then I've added my inks on the top. So that background is now ready to go. What I'm going to add to this one is a stamped image. Now there is a reason why she has no head. This is Karen by Stampertique. Her neck is so narrow it's actually easier to cut the head off and add it as you go along. So I'm going to have Karen standing here, and again that means I have freedom to change the direction of her head. And I'm going to give her a little crown, also by Stampertique, and I've coloured this image in with distressings. I'm going to add some extra features to the page as I go along, and you'll see I've got her standing again. She needs to be grounded so that she's not floating, and she's standing on a piece of vintage sheet music. So I'm going to add this first of all, and I'm going to keep working on this page and add lots of extra detail. So I'm using gel medium again, just going to add that along the edge there, and just painting it on. So here comes Karen's body, and you'll notice I'm placing her to one side, not in the middle, but to one side, and she can just stand on that piece of music there, like that. And now I can add her head. I think I'll just put her at a slight angle. And once I add this head, you'll never know that it was cut off in the process of cutting out, but just that way makes it just a little bit easier to handle. It's coming slightly off the edge, I will just trim that later. So there she is now with her crown, and she's actually standing on something, and she's nicely grounded. Now I'm going to add quite a bit more to this page now. One of the things I want to balance out this corner, I've got lots of detail here, I want to bring some detail in here, and I have these foam stamps. These are number stamps I'm going to have the number 43 in this corner. It's not a random number. 43 is my age, and that's going to become relevant to the rest of the page when you see me journal on it. And I'm going to use for this a permanent archival link, similar to Stays On, it's permanent. Foam stamps need quite a bit of inking, because the ink does tend to sink into them a little bit. Now I may just move this a little bit, slightly to an angle, just so I can see what I'm doing a bit better. I shall move it back in a moment. So there's my 4, and now you'll see this 3 is quite a bit larger, and I'm going to make sure I get this the right way around. I'm going to ink that up and add it so that it's right next to the 4 there. One thing I do need to be careful of is not to get ink on the edges of the stamp. If you are worried about things like that, you can just clean that off around the edge to make sure you don't get any awkward lines. And I'm making sure my 3 is the right way around, I hope. And there we are, so that's now a feature on my page. I'll just move this back now so it's in line with the camera. I do like to add big bold features. You can see I've done it here on a page that I'm ready. Don't quite know what I'm doing with that page yet, but I do like these big bold features on a page, and it balances out the detail I've got here. Now I still need to bring quite a bit more detail into the page. So I'm going to reach for the paints that I've already used. These are colours that are already in the background. I have a little bit on my craft mat there to work with. Now at the moment that 43 is really standing out, and to blend it into the background, I can start to stamp over it. Just becomes better as a part of the page. And I'm just going to build some in here. I'm going to use a slightly different sized lid. I'm going to take the red. This is the red that I've already used in the background. I can have circles within circles. And you can now just basically keep adding detail. You've got your main features in, so now you're free to keep adding. I'm going to make a feature of circles along the top here, because I've just got a little bit of text that I want to add here. So there's a row just stamped along the top. Now I've got Tim Holt's staple stamp here. I might just stamp that along the edge there just to make sure that that looks really bedded into the page. If I can, I'm going to try and just overlap the music a little bit. A little bit more on the edge there. There we are. So that just makes that look a little bit more part of the page. And again, just overlap that so it all works well together. And just a little bit now with a credit card. So I'm just going to bring in some gold. I've already splattered some gold ink sprays here, so I've got touches of gold already. So I'm not bringing in anything new, it's already there. Just add a few touches here and there. And I'm just going to leave that page, the painting as it is. One thing I will add, I've got this little strip of numbers here. And things like this you can look out for when you're looking through. This is a very old vintage text that somebody gave me. And some bits of these books are really useful. So you can see on here, there's a whole series of numbers. And little bits like that are very useful. This is what I want to add in the circles here. For no reason other than it's just another interesting feature on the page. And I'll just show you how those go, then I will glue them down. I'm not going to glue them down just yet, I'm just going to let that paint dry before I add any more, but just to show you how these go. Fiddly little things. And there goes the last one. Older texts are also a really nice colour. They're not glaringly white, they just sit really nicely with the rest of the colours. So once that paint has dried, I'm going to glue those in along there. And that page is finished for now. Although of course I could come back to it and add a little bit more at any time. I'm going to move on now to a page that's got a lot more space for journaling. And you'll see that I've already put some bits here. And this is my page. This is going to be a list page. I'm going to list reasons to be cheerful. I've done this already on my computer and I've edged it with Distress Inks, cut out and added it to the page. So this is like my title for the page. Now what I need to do, I need to look at this page. It's quite busy, so I'm going to be looking for gaps where I can put in some bits of writing. I'm going to go straight on with this. I haven't planned this. I'm going straight on with the writing. It will be mistakes and all, and I'm going to list them starting with number 1. This page is a quizzical page. The figure's head is on an angle, it looks like she's thinking, so that prompts me to think. And what I've been thinking about is how moaning becomes a very easy habit. It's very easy to sit back and moan and criticise. In fact, sometimes we just have to be thankful and grateful for the little things that we have in life. And that's why I've listed these reasons that I am to be cheerful. Number 1, I am happy and content with my life. I love and I am loved. When I write on a page, I try not to plan too much. I certainly don't draft it, I write straight onto the page. If it has mistakes, scribblings out, spelling errors, that's part of it. To keep the honesty in the writing, I like to just go straight on and write what I'm thinking. Number 2, my children are also happy and content. They're sociable and have their own talents. The reasons I've listed here are obviously about my family, my job, where I live, things that are around me all the time. You might have very different reasons that you have to be cheerful. Stop moaning. It becomes a habit. Got to look on the bright side. Is your glass half full? Lists are a great way to journal. You don't even have to write in sentences. You can do bullet points, things that you might like to write lists about. You might like to write 10 things that annoy you, 10 things that you have to look forward to, or 10 things that you want to do but never quite got round to doing. You could even just write a to-do list, things that you need to do fairly immediately. Number 3, I have a job that I'm good at. I don't always like it, but that's not the point. Number 4, I love where I live. I like the quiet life. It suits us all. I appreciate the fact that my kids are free to run out and play and it's safe. You might like to write your 10 favourite songs, your 10 favourite novels, your 10 favourite poems. Lists are a really easy way in to journaling. Number 5. I love to make art. It makes me happy. I'm thankful that I'm able to do it, and those around me understand why. There are many different ways of journaling. Here's a way that you can journal on a daily basis. This is called calendar journaling, and this is done on a double-page spread in a large moleskin or a large sketchbook, and each day is represented by a square approximately 1.5 inches. All you need to do every day is look for something interesting that happened in your day and just write in each square. In fact, you don't even need to write. You'll see that some of mine have small diagrams. This is a picture of me singing, and here I've got a little diagram here. This is when my daughter was going away on a residential. So it doesn't have to be writing. It could be a rubber stamp image, it could be a little collage image, but you're looking for something every day. This page has got lots of room for writing. I'm going to break the writing up with a little bit of decoration as well. I've already started here along the top. Now that shape isn't easy to journal around, so you can see I've put some journaling lines on ready for me to write in, but I'm just filling that gap in. Now I'm using my Sharpie poster paint pens, because remember these will write on anything. Similar pens would be Posca pens. You can see these colours really stand out against the background. So I'm using this to fill the gaps, but I'll introduce these further down in the page as well. Now I've already got some journaling lines here, and I'm going to work first of all just down this side of the page. As I write between these two lines, this won't be my natural handwriting style. I want to keep my letters all within these two lines. In other words, I can't have letters such as a G coming down over there. I'm going to keep it all within 2 lines. So I'm going to slightly change my style of writing. Journaling on this page is what's happening to me right now. I'm writing about my very immediate experiences. There's always opportunities for journaling every day. Most days are really quite dull. It's the usual day-to-day routine of work and school and so on, but there's always something every day that you could write about, something interesting, something different, so look for those journal opportunities every day. On this one I've obviously written my lines freehand. I like to do that as I'm going along, but adding little bits of embellishment, the little circles, colouring those in, it just breaks up the writing a little bit, and it also gives me a moment to think about what I'm going to write in the next paragraph. It's just a chance to catch up with my thoughts. Now I didn't plan this page at all, so that the way the journaling comes out is very much the way that I'm thinking, and the way that we think is fairly random. So if you don't plan it, it comes out as you're thinking, and that's a more natural way, I think, of journaling. It's finally here. It seems so far away, and as if I would have plenty of time to plan, but life has a habit of speeding up and catching you by surprise. Surprise! Usually, I journal at home, on my own, and I choose to share journal pages, and I choose not to share other journal pages. This is an unusual situation for me, as I'm really aware that anybody can read what I've written. First of all came the long journey. I am not freaked out by long distance driving, but I'm out of practice. But I only took 2 wrong turns, but I might tell Steve it was only 1. It's been very strange to be away from the children, but I have been able to FaceTime them. I want to talk, but they want to show me things like their stick insects. Usually I journal on my own, quietly, slowly, ponderously, doing my own thing. So this has been a very different experience to what I'm used to. When I was first asked, I wanted to run from the room screaming, "No!" But then I gathered up some courage. But there have still been times when I've asked myself, why am I doing this? But life is short and you have to be brave, gather up some courage and take some risks. At least I can say, I did it. That was a lot of writing. My hand needs a rest now, so now I'm going to have a look at the inky page where there's just a small gap for some writing. This inky page was a quick page to make. Working with inks is quick, they're quick drying, and I just left a small space to journal on this page. And what led me to this journaling is I chose 3 portraits on the page, and as I'm one of 3 girls, 3 sisters, that led me to thinking about the relationship that we have together now. One of 3, 3 girls, 3 sisters. 3 is a crowd, maybe, sometimes. But 3 can also be great. You always have a friend, always have someone to turn to share things with. And we all have a role to play. Leader, bossy, spoilt, but which is which? And that's it for that page now. I'm just going to show you now my final page. On this page I've used a computer-generated quote to start off the page, and the quote reads, "Carefully masquerading as a responsible adult." I saw this when I was shopping one day. I saw it on a sign that was for sale in a shop, and it really struck a chord with me, because I think a lot of us feel like this. It doesn't matter how old you are, how many responsibilities you have, you still feel young on the inside. So still, at the age I am at 43, I still some days wonder when I'm going to feel grown up. To add to the journaling, I've journaled around the figure. Because it's a busy background, there wasn't a lot of space for writing, and so just journaling around a shape that you have on the page is a way of just adding a little bit of journaling if there isn't a lot of other space. It doesn't matter how old you are, you always feel young at heart. I know my responsibilities as a grown-up, but I don't always want to be responsible. I think if you look around you on a daily basis, you'll see lots of prompts for journaling, things that you might see on a sign in a shop, for instance, headlines in a newspaper, things you might read in a magazine. I like to keep a little notebook. I have one by my bed and one in my handbag, and when I see things that I might want to journal about later on, I jot them down, like a magpie. I call it my magpie book, collecting things that you see that can act as a prompt later on. If you've watched both DVDs, Right from a Blank Page and There Are No Mistakes in Art, then you will see how a page grows right from a blank page through to a finished, vibrant, personal, colourful journal page. I love doing this, and I hope you do too. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your journaling. Goodbye.